Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into one of Australia's most perplexing and honestly heartbreaking cold cases.
The disappearance of William Tyrrell.
Exactly. 3 years old, vanished back in 2014. We've gone through a lot of material reports, court documents, timelines.
A huge amount.
And our mission here really is to unpack it all. Not just the facts, but how the whole focus of this massive investigation shifted so dramatically over almost a decade.
That shift is really, well, it's everything in this case, isn't it? For 7 years, the entire country pretty much thought this was about an abduction.
A stranger abduction, yeah, the classic nightmare scenario.
Like an opportunistic kidnapper. And then suddenly, in 2021, everything flips.
A complete pivot.
Authorities basically said, okay, we're not really looking at abduction anymore. The focus shifted inwards towards the possibility of an accident, a concealed accident.
So we need to trace that. How did they get from point A, the stranger theory, to point B, this awful possibility closer to home? What changed? Was it new evidence or something else?
Or sometimes, as we'll see, maybe missteps in the investigation itself. It's complicated.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. The day he vanished, September 12th, 2014. William Tyrrell, born June 2011, so he was just 3.
And that image, everyone knows it, the Spider-Man costume.
That bright red and blue suit. Apparently, the photo was taken just minutes before he disappeared. It's haunting.
It really is. It makes it so specific, so real, but the context is important too.
Right. He wasn't at his usual home.
No. His older sister, she was 5, and his foster parents had driven up from Sydney the day before.
A 4-hour drive.
Yeah, up to Kendall, New South Wales. They were visiting the foster grandmother.
And Kendall is, well, it's not a big city. It's semi-rural, south of Port Macquarie.
Exactly. About 35 kilometers south, quiet area. And the house itself on Benaroon Drive, its location is crucial.
Tell us about that, Benaroon Drive.
Well, it's a quiet street, and the grandmother's house backs onto, or rather, sits across a road from the Kendall State Forest.
So you've got dense bushland literally right there.
Yeah, right across the road. Rugged terrain. Which, immediately adds complexity.
Because the first thought might be, did he just wander off? A 3-year-old.
That's always a possibility. But the proximity of that forest, and as we'll get to the forensic evidence later, it complicated that simple theory very quickly.
Okay, let's nail down that timeline. It's incredibly short. We're talking about a window between roughly 10 a.m. and 10:25 a.m. on that Friday morning.
Just 25 minutes, William and his sister were playing outside, hide and seek apparently.
In the front and backyards? Under supervision initially?
Yes, the foster mother was watching them, but then she went inside, just for a moment.
To make a cup of tea, the reports say.
Right, and it was only after about 5 minutes, she said, of silence. That's when the worry set in. She couldn't see or hear him.
5 minutes of silence? That's chilling.
She starts searching immediately, frantically, you'd imagine.
And the foster father? He wasn't there initially.
No, he'd been away on business, nearby in Lakewood. But he got back quickly and joined the search straight away. They started knocking on neighbors' doors.
Trying to cover the immediate area. What's the last thing the foster mother remembers seeing?
This is another detail that sticks with you. She said William was running around the side of the house, roaring like a tiger. Playfully.
And then just silence.
Complete silence after that roar.
Wow. Okay, so they realized quickly this was serious. They called emergency services.
Yes. The call to went in at 10:57 a.m.
So roughly half an hour after she realized he was missing.
And the police response was fast. They were there 9 minutes later at 11:06 a.m.
That's quick. Shows how seriously it was taken from the outset. It wasn't just a let's wait and see situation.
No, absolutely not. Which leads straight into the immediate response, the scale of it.
Because when a child disappears like that, especially a young child, the resources deployed are just immense, aren't they?
Oh, huge. The initial search was massive. You're talking hundreds of people.
Police, obviously.
Local police, yes, but also the SES, State Emergency Service, the RFS, the Rural Fire Service guys who know that bushland, and just community volunteers, hundreds of them, searching day and night.
All pouring into this small community.
Exactly. And it wasn't just people on foot. They brought in specialist resources.
Like what?
Police on motorbikes to cover the rougher terrain in the forest. Helicopters up above doing aerial sweeps.
Looking for any sign, any color.
Anything. And police divers, too. Systematically checking every creek, every dam, every waterway nearby. They were thorough.
And they searched buildings, too. Houses.
Every single house in that estate. And not just once. The reports say they searched them several times in those first critical days.
So point is, this wasn't a superficial search. If he'd simply wandered a short distance or fallen nearby.
The likelihood is they would have found him. The sheer number of trained searchers, the resources, it suggests he wasn't just lost in the immediate vicinity.
Which brings us to a really key piece of early evidence, doesn't it? The detection dogs.
Yes. This was critical in shaping the early investigation.
What did the dogs find? Or perhaps what didn't they find?
They brought in dogs trained specifically for human scent, and they did pick up William's scent.
Okay.
But, and this is the crucial part, the scent trail stopped abruptly.
Where?
Within the boundaries of the foster grandmother's backyard. The scent did not lead out, not down the street, not into the state forest across the road. It just ended there.
So if he'd walked even, say, 50 feet into the bush.
The dog should have tracked that. Or if he'd walked down the road. The fact the scent stopped cold right there on the property.
That points strongly away from him wandering off alone.
Exactly. It was the first really solid piece of forensic information suggesting he was removed from that yard very quickly, probably picked up, put into a vehicle, and driven away.
And that finding must have immediately shifted the police focus.
Absolutely. It solidified the abduction theory very early on and led directly to the formation of Strike Force Roseanne.
When was that set up?
Really quickly, September 16th, 2014, just 4 days after he disappeared.
And this wasn't just local detectives anymore.
No, this was the State Crime Command stepping in, a dedicated strike force with investigators experienced in these kinds of cases, unexplained disappearances of children. They knew this was likely something complex.
So after about 5 days of this massive search, intense effort, they had nothing.
No trace, no leads. Police had to announce it publicly, and as you said, for the next 7 years, the working theory, the only real theory pursued publicly by Strike Force Roseanne, was abduction.
An opportunistic stranger? Someone who saw a chance and took it.
And that theory wasn't just based on the dogs. It was fueled by those suspicious sightings on Benaroon Drive that morning.
Right, the cars. Let's get into that. Section 3, the abduction theory years. This dominated everything for so long. What were these vehicles?
Locals reported seeing vehicles that just didn't belong there. Benaroon Drive, remember, it's a quiet, dead-end kind of street, not a thoroughfare.
So strangers stand out.
Definitely. And 2 cars in particular drew a lot of attention. A white station wagon and an older-style gray sedan.
Where were they seen?
Parked, apparently, between driveways, just sitting there. And witnesses noted the driver's side windows were down.
Suggesting someone was inside, maybe watching, waiting?
That was the suspicion. Police themselves said there was no logical reason for those specific cars, unknown to locals, to be parked right there that morning.
And the foster mother saw them too.
Yes, she noticed them. And crucially, after William vanished, these cars were never seen in the area again.
It does sound suspicious. Were there other sightings too?
Yes, adding to the feeling the area was being maybe scouted. A green or gray sedan was seen earlier around 9 a.m., driving past the house and then doing a U-turn.
Like they were checking it out.
Possibly. And then, right around the time William disappeared, about 10:30 a.m., a 4WD, a four-wheel drive vehicle, was seen driving out of Benaroon Drive, and witnesses said it was speeding.
Driving away quickly just as he vanished. Okay, that all feeds the abduction narrative.
Absolutely. Now, here's an interesting detail about how police handled this early on.
What's that?
Well, the source materials show they actually held back the information about these specific cars, the white wagon and the gray sedan, for a full year.
Really? Why would they do that? Seems counterintuitive if you want public help.
It's an investigative strategy, sometimes risky. The idea is you withhold key details to see if the perpetrator, or maybe witnesses who know something, will reveal information unprompted.
Or maybe they slip up.
Yeah.
Mention details only the police or the offender would know.
Exactly. Or maybe they try to create an alibi related to those cars once the description is released, potentially incriminating themselves. But it shows, tactically, police were locked onto that external abduction theory from the very start.
Given the nature of it, a young child taken, did they immediately look at known offenders in the area, that pedophile connection?
That was an immediate line of inquiry, yes. Standard procedure in these cases, sadly. They investigated whether it could be linked to an organized pedophile ring. They later concluded it probably wasn't an organized ring. More likely a lone opportunistic offender if it was abduction.
But the context is still pretty grim. Some media reports at the time mentioned there were, about 20 registered sex offenders living in the general Kendall area?
That figure was reported, yes. It highlights the background fear investigators were working against. And this focus did lead them to specific persons of interest, or PIs.
Who were they?
Two men, specifically. Both were convicted child sex offenders. They knew each other, were friends apparently, and they were members of an organization called JP.
IP.
Grandparents. As parents. Again, it's a support group.
Okay. And what linked these two men to the Tyrrell case specifically?
Their vehicles. Descriptions of their cars matched the descriptions of that suspicious gray sedan and the white station wagon seen on Venerin Drive.
That's a strong
Well,
coincidence.
very strong coincidence. And when police questioned them, their stories didn't quite line up. Their alibis were conflicting.
How so?
Well, one of them, a man with a very long criminal record, reportedly around 90 convictions, he claimed he was out in the bush that morning collecting scrap metal.
Got it.
But his own family told police something different. They said he was actually visiting the other POI, his friend, that day, and that he came home later that afternoon drunk.
So completely different stories for the crucial time period.
Mm.
Did they admit knowing each other?
No. Despite evidence they were friends and the matching car descriptions and these conflicting alibis, both men denied being friends and denied any involvement whatsoever in William's disappearance.
It shows the frustration, right? You can have strong circumstantial links, suspicious behavior, but without direct evidence.
Without a body, without a witness, without a confession, it often hits a wall. And these men remain persons of interest, but no charges were laid related to William.
Now, the search for suspects also led down another path, one that ended up being incredibly damaging for the police investigation itself.
Ah, yes. You're talking about the washing machine repairman.
Exactly. A man who had done some work at the foster grandmother's house before William disappeared.
This became a major public focus. He was thrust into the spotlight largely because he had faced unrelated historical child sex charges in Victoria, dating way back to the 1980s.
Which had nothing to do with William Tyrrell, but it put him on the radar.
It put him squarely in the sights of the investigation, particularly the lead detective at the time, Gary Jubilin. This man even felt compelled to post a video online in 2015 publicly denying any involvement.
And eventually the police confirmed he wasn't involved, right? He had an alibi.
Yes, they confirmed he was somewhere else entirely on the day William vanished. He was cleared of any involvement in the disappearance, and importantly, all those historical charges against him were either dropped or dismissed later on.
But the story doesn't end there. The way he was pursued had serious consequences.
Catastrophic consequences, really. He sued the New South Wales police force.
On what grounds?
Misfeasance in public office, abuse of process, and malicious prosecution. These are serious allegations against the police conduct.
And he won, didn't he?
He did. In December 2022, the Supreme Court awarded him a huge sum, $1.48 million, plus interest.
Wow. And the court's findings about the investigation, about Jubilin's role.
They were incredibly damning. The court found that the pursuit of this man was malicious.
Malicious. That's strong language from a court.
Very strong. The judgment stated that historical charges were essentially fabricated or improperly pursued against him with the sole purpose. Those were the court's words. The sole purpose of pressuring him into confessing to something related to William Tyrrell's disappearance.
So the court found police basically manufactured a case against him to break him on the Tyrrell case.
That's the essence of the finding. It suggests investigators, under immense pressure, crossed a line into illegal conduct themselves. It completely undermined the credibility of that phase of the investigation.
And it speaks volumes about the pressure cooker environment surrounding this case, which grew even bigger over time. Let's talk about that scaling up section 4.
Yeah, the pressure just kept mounting. There was actually a personal plea from William's foster parents directly to the state parliament.
And that led to more resources.
Significantly more. The case officially became the largest missing person investigation in New South Wales history. The state government was all in, publicly at least.
How big did Strike Force Roseanne get?
The core team grew to 14 full-time detectives and analysts. That's a lot of dedicated personnel for one case.
And they needed backup, too.
They did. They established a second strike force called Roseanne 2 just to support the main investigation. They pulled in specialists from other squads, armed holdups, sex crimes, fraud, bringing in different skill sets.
And significantly, the homicide squad was running the whole show.
Which tells you, even though they were publicly pursuing abduction, internally they were always considering the possibility that William was deceased. Homicide handles unexplained deaths.
The sheer volume of information must have been overwhelming.
Staggering. The public response was unprecedented. NSW Crime Stoppers received over 2,800 calls about William Tyrrell. That was a record.
And the internal workload. Interviews, documents.
Police interviewed over 1,000 people. They generated something like 11,000 internal police documents. And the list of persons of interest just kept growing.
How many POIs did they end up identifying?
The final count was around 690.
690 people. How do you even manage that?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? You can't possibly investigate 690 people thoroughly. You're forced to triage, to prioritize. Many would have been quickly ruled out or classed as a very low priority.
But creates this huge data fog, right? Makes it hard to see the important leads.
Exactly. The needle in the haystack gets buried under more and more hay. And the search wasn't just local or even national.
It went global.
Yeah, the Australian Federal Police, the AFP, got involved. They pushed appeals out internationally. Europe, the US reports it up to 26 countries, trying every possible avenue.
Did that lead to anything? Any credible sightings overseas?
It led mostly to false hope, unfortunately, which is just agonizing for everyone involved. Over 1,000 reported sightings came in within the first 2 years.
1,000.
Yeah. People genuinely thought they saw him. There was that photo from Queensland of a boy who looked remarkably similar. A report from airline staff on a flight heading to New Zealand. Someone thought they saw him in a McDonald's.
And each one had to be checked out.
Every single one. And every single time it was confirmed not to be William. Draining resources and just emotionally devastating.
So the investigation seemed stalled. What did the authorities do next to try and break the deadlock?
They pulled out the financial incentive lever, a big one, on the second anniversary of his disappearance, September 2016.
The reward.
The massive reward, $1 million.
$1 million. That's huge for a missing person case.
It was the largest reward ever offered in NSW history for a missing person at that time, double the previous record. It showed just how desperate they were for a breakthrough.
Was it just for information leading to an arrest and conviction?
No, and this is a really significant detail. The reward explicitly included information leading to the recovery of Tyrrell.
Meaning his body.
Or finding him alive, theoretically, though that seemed less likely by then. But the emphasis on recovery, not just conviction, is telling.
What does it tell you?
It suggests that finding William, giving the family and the public some kind of closure, was perhaps becoming the primary goal, even possibly over securing a prosecution. They just needed to know what happened. They needed something.
Which brings us, tragically, to Section V. The moment the entire investigation turned on its head. November 2021.
Yeah, the pivot. After 7 years relentlessly pursuing the abduction theory, everything changed.
What triggered it?
Police announced they had received new evidence. The specifics weren't released, but it was significant enough to prompt a major new search operation back in Kendall.
Not just a general search, though. Specific areas.
Yes, they focused on 3 distinct locations around the Kendall property. They weren't casting a wide net in the bush anymore. This was targeted.
And the language from the police changed completely.
Dramatically. Detective Chief Superintendent Darren Bennett made a statement that just sent shockwaves.
What did he say?
He said, and I'm quoting loosely here, "It's highly likely that if we found something, it would be a body. We are looking for the remains of William Tyrrell, no doubt about that."
Wow. So publicly stating the operational assumption was now that William was dead and his remains were likely near the property.
It was a complete reversal. A public acknowledgement that the abduction theory, the focus of 7 years of work and millions of dollars, was likely wrong.
And who did this new evidence point towards?
Well, almost immediately after that announcement, major media outlets started reporting, citing police sources, that the focus of the investigation had shifted.
To who?
To William's foster mother and also his foster grandmother, who had passed away by this time. They were now considered persons of interest in his disappearance.
So the focus shifted from an external stranger to the immediate family environment.
Exactly. And a new theory emerged, guiding this new phase of the investigation. The possibility that William's death was accidental. Specifically, police started investigating the theory that he might have fallen from a balcony on the foster grandmother's property.
An accident. And then, what? A cover-up.
That became the working hypothesis, an accidental death, followed by panicked actions to conceal what had happened. This required a whole new forensic approach, examining the house, the garden, the soil, looking for trace evidence years later.
It still begs the question, what was this new evidence? It must have been compelling to overturn 7 years in investigation.
We still don't know exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Police have kept that very close to their chest. That silence, of course, just fueled intense speculation and put the foster parents under immense public scrutiny.
Around this time, there was also some strange testimony at the ongoing inquest, wasn't there?
Yes, adding another layer, though its significance is unclear. A woman, given the pseudonym Tanya, testified in 2021.
What did she...
She claimed that two young boys she used to babysit told her something disturbing. They said they saw a local man burying a suitcase.
A suitcase.
Yes. And according to Tanya, the boys claimed this man threatened them and told them the suitcase contained William Tyrrell's body.
That's quite a claim. Was it ever verified?
Like so many leads in this case, it seems to have remained unverified publicly, but the fact it was presented at the inquest shows investigators were exploring scenarios very different from the original abduction theory. Local secrets, perhaps.
And this new focus on the foster mother soon led to actual legal action against her.
It did. In April 2022, she was charged with a specific offense, giving false or misleading information to the NSW Crime Commission during one of their hearings about the case.
What happened with that charge?
She pleaded not guilty, and she was actually found not guilty of that specific charge in November 2022.
Okay, but that wasn't the end of it.
No. The police investigation continued its focus, and in June 2023, detectives took a much more serious step.
Which was?
They formally recommended to the Director of Public Prosecutions that the foster mother be charged with two very serious offenses relating to William's death.
What were the recommended charges?
Perverting the course of justice and interfering with a corpse.
Okay, let's break those down. Interfering with a corpse. That implies handling his body after death.
Yes, it alleges improper interference with human remains, moving, concealing, disposing of them.
And perverting the course of justice.
That alleges actions taken specifically to mislead investigators or obstruct the investigation. Lying, concealing evidence, creating a false narrative.
So these recommended charges perfectly encapsulate the police's final theory. Accidental death, followed by concealment and a cover-up attempt.
Precisely. It's the legal formulation of that hypothesis. Though it's crucial to state these were recommendations. Charges haven't formally been laid by the DPP as of the latest reports we have.
This whole situation highlights legal complexities that were actually baked into this case from the very beginning, even before the 2021 pivot.
You mean his foster care status?
Exactly. Section 6. For a long time, the public didn't even know William was in foster care.
That's right. It was suppressed legally. Standard practice, really, under laws designed to protect the privacy of children in the care system. It prevents their biological parents from being identified, prevents certain details becoming public.
But in a case like this, that suppression created a real dilemma, didn't it?
A huge one. It sparked a major public debate. What's more important? Protecting a child's privacy according to the law, or using every possible tool, including public appeals from biological family, to find a missing child?
Because the biological parents couldn't speak out initially.
No, they were gagged by the law. They couldn't make those desperate public pleas that you often see in missing persons cases.
This ended up in court, didn't it?
It did. It went all the way to the NSW Supreme Court of Appeal. And in August 2017, the court made a really significant ruling.
What did they decide?
They ruled that the fact William was in foster care and disappeared while technically in the care of the state was a matter of legitimate public interest.
So the public interest outweighed the privacy concerns in this specific tragic instance.
That was the court's finding. It finally allowed that information to be reported, but it took nearly 3 years after his disappearance for that to happen.
3 years where that information wasn't public. Was there criticism about the delay?
Yes, significant criticism. Bruce Morcom, for instance, the father of Daniel Morcom, another high-profile abduction victim, he spoke out very strongly.
What was his argument?
He argued that preventing the biological parents from speaking publicly in those critical first days and weeks might have seriously hampered the investigation. That early period is crucial for leads, for public memory.
It's a valid point. Someone might have seen something, remembered something, triggered by an appeal from a biological parent that wasn't triggered otherwise.
Potentially. The NSW government defended its position, saying their priority under the law was the child's welfare and protecting the integrity of the police investigation. But you can't deny that time and potentially leads were lost due to that legal restriction.
It's another layer of complexity in an already incredibly complex case.
Absolutely. So if we trace the whole arc, you start with the immediate search, the dogs pointing to removal, then 7 years dominated by the external abduction theory.
Marked by things like the wrongful pursuit of the repairman, that massive payout.
Right. Then the sheer data overload, 690 POIs, the global search, the $1 million reward emphasizing recovery.
And finally, that dramatic pivot in 2021. The shift to looking for remains, the focus on the foster mother, the accidental death theory.
It's been a roller coaster. So where does that leave the case now, based on the information up to mid-2023?
Officially, still unsolved. Despite that huge shift in focus, the new searches, the forensic work, police haven't announced finding definitive proof of what happened.
It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? After all this time, all the resources, the competing theories, they still can't say for certain. They've gone from assuming he might be alive back in 2015.
Right. Investigators were quite confident publicly back then.
To Detective Bennett in 2021 saying, unequivocally, we are looking for remains. Yet they still seem to lack that final piece of forensic evidence. No body has been found. No definitive confession.
It's been a saga of contradictions, massive public expense, and, frankly, some significant embarrassments for the NSW police, like that malicious prosecution verdict.
That $1.48 million payout isn't just about money. It's about public trust, about investigative methods under pressure. It really highlights the dangers when a high-profile case creates that kind of intense scrutiny.
And that's maybe the key takeaway here for you listening. The William Tyrrell case isn't just a tragic story about a missing boy.
No, it's a case study. A study in how major investigations operate under immense pressure, how legal frameworks interact with investigative needs, how theories evolve, and sometimes how things go wrong.
The shift itself from stranger abduction to potential domestic accident and concealment, it forces us to question how initial assumptions are formed in these cases.
Was the early abduction theory too heavily influenced by the dog scent evidence? Or by just the sheer horror of thinking anything else could be possible?
And you see how systems can impact things. The foster care laws, designed for protection, arguably hindered the search.
The public pressure arguably contributed to investigators making unlawful choices in pursuing a POI. The moving parts here are incredible.
And that $1 million reward, still technically active, isn't it? Still including the recovery of William.
Yes. But until there's definitive forensic evidence, maybe from soil analysis from those recent digs, or perhaps, unlikely as it seems now, a confession, the fate of William Tyrrell, the little boy in the Spider-Man suit, remains unknown.
Which leaves us with a final thought, perhaps a provocative one for you to consider. Given the outcome with the washing machine repairman, the malicious prosecution finding, the huge payout, should those resources, that intense focus, have been directed differently earlier on?
Should there have been a more rigorous, perhaps uncomfortable forensic examination of the property and the immediate circumstances right from the start, even alongside the abduction theory? Did the single-minded pursuit of one theory for 7 years ultimately hinder finding the truth? When does the desperate search for justice inadvertently become its own obstacle?
Something to think about. It's all we have time for on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.